Hello, I'm Michael Popove. Coming up on Week in Review, more rats are found out at the landfill, and the city's energy division sees a $28 million increase in profits over last year. We'll have those stories and a lot more on Week in Review.
From the Broadcast Center in Medicine Hat, in high definition, this is Chat News Week in Review.
Welcome and thank you for joining us. We begin this week as more dead rats have been found at the city landfill. So far, the count sits at around 40. Sarah Kraus takes a look at the measures being taken to keep our region of the province rat-free.
As soon as the rats were spotted, nearly a dozen people began working to eradicate the unwanted rodents. Landfill staff are being paid regularly through the city, while additional costs, like bait and traps, are being billed to Cypress County.
Our council and our upper management is very supportive of the rat control program. It's something we've been involved in for a very long time, and if it keeps our residents safe and rats out of the county, then we're more than happy to do it.
The province is also jumping in to protect our long-standing claim of being rat-free, despite having 2 infestations here in the Hat in just 2 years.
Rats don't respect borders. They don't have passports or visas where they can't get into Alberta because they don't have them. But as I say, whenever we hear about rats, they don't get to stay long.
Traps with bait are currently set up in a 3-mile radius around the landfill. The county is using Tier 1 bait stations, which means they're both child and pet resistant.
We've taken all measures possible to try and avoid any off-target poisonings. So the bait, the stations themselves are secured, and the poisons are secured within the bait stations. So there's very little risk of the poison itself moving beyond the bait station. The other saving grace is, of course, being the landfill. There's just not much of that, those other critters out there. So that, combined with the fact that these bait stations are required by law to be pet and child-proof, it's fairly safe.
Landfill Superintendent Paul Nicholson says it's highly unlikely the nocturnal creatures would hitch a ride away from the site on a truck, as they tend to shy away from noise. To be proactive, however, there's also traps set up all around Medicine Hat. Already, 5 residents have contacted the city after spotting what they believe to be a rat. If you're concerned about rats in or around your property, there's a few things that you can look for other than the rodent itself. Rat feces is 100 times larger than mouse droppings, and they also dig holes with smooth runs outside. But be warned, they look similar to gopher holes. The city and county continue to work together to contain the problem. Sarah Kraus, Chat News.
Cypress County is looking to recoup close to $2 million after the fire at the West Star landfill last fall. The bill includes everything from staff overtime to the money owed to Hellfire Suppression Services and other contractors that helped put out the blaze. Now, initially, the costs were paid from a special reserve fund the county developed for when oil and gas income dries up. So far, county officials say there's been no impact on the programs or services. The bill was sent to West Star in early February, and they've not been in communication with Cypress County since.
And if it doesn't get paid, the process in Alberta is to put it onto the taxes. And then if the taxes don't become paid after a certain amount of time, then it goes through the procedure of tax recovery. We're hoping we don't get there, but that's one option that we might be looking at.
Also this week, the provincial government issued an environmental protection order suspending the registration of the West Star landfill. It's been almost 6 months since voters elected a new mayor and city council here in Medicine Hat. One of the biggest issues during the campaign was the state of the city's energy division. Since then, a lot has changed.
For the full year, the projected loss is $4 million. But the point is, folks, it put our city at risk because we have never had experience in producing oil.
I don't understand your pessimism.
It was one of the most memorable exchanges of the fall election. The state of the city's energy division was front and center during the campaign, and it seemed Ted Cluxton bore most of the criticism.
Councillor Cox said it actually on Monday night, you can't, if you're driving down the road, don't be looking right in front of you, you got to be looking, to where you're going.
Almost 6 months later, the city's energy fortunes have vastly improved. The chief operating officer for the energy division says since then, new accounting methods have been adopted, which includes major cost savings for the replacement of natural gas.
We have abandoned nearly 170 wells. We're going to be doing that again this year. That is wells that are very low in productivity, and so we're going to be reducing our costs.
So much so, the city's expecting a $28 million increase in profit this year over 2013. The most notable change is in the oil and gas division that sees a $67 million turnaround after the new accounting measures are factored in.
To panic or overreact to one quarter's numbers is actually, I think, immature and almost is irresponsible. You have to take a long-term view when you're in the gas and oil business.
The energy business is a volatile one. When the price of natural gas is high, that costs the city more money to generate electricity. While oil prices have held steady this year, the city says that has really helped. And it's because of the city's diversified energy portfolio that Jerry LeBas says he's cautiously optimistic.
As far as natural gas is concerned, we see the prices remaining fairly strong in that mid $4 range for the balance of this year.
However, the Many Berries oil property continues to be a contentious issue. Drilling is being affected as it currently is under the federal emergency order protecting the endangered sage grouse.
So I hear these rumors that we've lost $50 million. Well, of course we haven't lost $50 million. The asset is still there. It is still producing oil, and so it isn't gone. We're hoping that the federal government recognizes the mistake they made.
During last fall's campaign, the now mayor took a lot of heat over wanting to diversify into oil. If prices continue to hold, he may well, in fact, have the last word. City Council took the first step in raising property taxes on Monday. First reading of the bylaw passed unanimously that would see taxes increase by 3.6% for a single family home. For an average home assessed at roughly $230,000, the increase would amount to around $74 per year. Multi-family houses could see an increase of almost 5%. Mayor Clugston says the tax hike would come to just over $90 per year, but he says when you factor in a decrease in the education component, that increase would amount to approximately $6 per month.
Even with this increase, we will still be the lowest in Alberta and probably the lowest in Canada again. It's unfortunate. We don't want to do it, but we have wage settlements that were largely out of our control, arbitration. So we're doing this. Plus, I think we're elected. This council was elected to do some things. I think you're seeing a lot of capital projects come down the pipe.
And the bylaw to raise taxes still requires council to pass the second and third reading before taking effect. It's been an empty lot for decades and the site of a number of failed development ideas. However, that's about to change as the city has announced ambitious plans to develop 603 First Street downtown. Jordan Canigan reports.
It currently serves as a parking lot, but by this time next year, shovels could be in the ground to start a major retail and residential complex at 306 First Street. On Monday, council viewed concept plans that show one retail building and one residential and commercial building, both completed with underground parking. The project will be city-led this time after numerous attempts from private developers, which Councillor Bill Cox say have all fell through in the past.
We had some interest expressed by a group of doctors. We had the property sold at least twice in the past conditionally, and the conditions fell apart.
Mayor Ted Clugston says the city is able to front the bill for the $26 to $30 million project, which private companies weren't open to. And Clugston is confident they'll be able to quickly make up their investment with businesses and people moving in.
I'm hoping that by the time this building is basically complete, the commercial tower is fully leased and the residential tower is almost 80 to 100% sold. So I'm not worried. The taxpayer is going to get their money back.
Between the two buildings, there could be more than 46,000 square feet of office and retail space and 45 residential units. Clugston says there's already been inquiries into filling that space.
There's a lot of interest. I have people emailing me last night because they read the article in the paper saying, oh, I'm really interested in a condo. Make sure that you guys advertise that when those come for sale. So I think there's a lot of interest.
Council also voted to start the process of accepting architectural designs for the area. They're inviting companies to submit their vision for the site, and then a final design will be picked in October. Clugston says they're giving architects freedom to design what they wish, but it still has to follow the city's downtown development plan.
It should maybe integrate with City Hall, look something like some of the other buildings downtown, but be unique and modern.
Now, if everything goes according to plan, the city hopes to have construction started here at this time next year, with the completed site done in September of 2016. Jordan Cadigan, Chat News.
And council rejected a plan this week that would have allowed a mobile home development to be built in the Box Springs Business Park next to Rodeo Ford. By a 7-1 margin, council voted down a plan that would have rezoned 20 acres of land near the Trans-Canada from highway commercial to medium-density residential. However, the owner of Rodeo Ford, Richard Lant, was against the idea, saying the noise, light, and air pollution from nearby industry would be detrimental to those moving to the area. Developer Darren Scomo says that land has sat vacant for 40 years, and he expects that will continue for some time longer.
Obviously, I'm disappointed. We feel it's the best use of that land today. The city has waited 40 years to develop that land, and nothing has happened.
Council made the right decision in changing the rezoning on a number of reasons that were brought up tonight. However, my heart goes out with the developers.
City Council will soon be voting on an extra $600,000 needed to finish the upgrades to the downtown gaslight project. Council had already approved $2.5 million to convert the street lanterns downtown from natural gas. The extra funding is needed to treat corroded light posts, as well as extending the festive lighting on 2nd Street to the entire downtown core. Councillor Les Pearson says all of the lamps will then be equipped with LED lighting.
The same kind of lighting effect that you see on 2nd Street right now will be absolutely across the whole of the downtown area. It'll be quite exciting, I think, to see the effect that has on bringing people downtown at night.
And work is expected to begin this fall on 2 sewage lift stations damaged in last year's flood. The $1.1 million project will repair the damage to the Purmell and Crescent Heights lift stations. Councillor Robert Dumanowski says both of the lines that cross the South Saskatchewan River need to be upgraded due to erosion caused by past floods.
The Purmell lift station line that runs directly across the South Saskatchewan River carries about 70 to 80% of the effluents that runs through the city, so it's critical mass infrastructure that needs to be guarded.
And pending council's approval, work will begin in the fall, with the province of Alberta paying for the entire project. City officials received a spring flood update this week that also included information on future mitigation plans. Public Works General Manager Dwight Brown says residents in flood-prone areas are now being consulted on permanent mitigation plans. He says detailed designs will then be finalized, with construction set to begin by the summer. As far as short-term measures for potential spring flooding, Brown says the city is ready.
We're also proceeding on that bent to have the materials or resources, the plan, the alignment of where we need to put those measures that we procured, the barricades, the big bag systems, the muscle wall. And so if we get a spring event, are we prepared to go? And the answer is yes, we will be.
And Brown says the permanent flood mitigation measures will be completed by 2016. All right, please stay tuned as we have a heartbreaking story about a local woman who loses her husband and thousands of dollars worth of their possessions. That story coming up after the break. Welcome back. Medicine Hat Police are providing another update in the murder investigation of 94-year-old Hazel Lloyd. Lloyd was found dead in a Riverside apartment in August of 2012. This week, police releasing 3 composite sketches of men they would like to talk to. While investigators aren't calling any of the men suspects, they say the 3 could have information on the homicide. Anyone who recognizes any of the 3 men is asked to call the Major Crime Section at 403-529-8420. A $10,000 reward remains in effect for any information leading to an arrest or conviction in connection with the crime. An 18-year-old Cypress County woman is dead following a single vehicle rollover last Sunday. It happened at the intersection of Township Road 142 and Range Road 61. Redcliffe RCMP say the small SUV was traveling north on Township Road 142 when it veered off the road at a curve. The vehicle rolled into a ditch, catching fire, while the woman was pronounced dead at the scene. Staff Sergeant Sean Maxwell says the investigation into the cause of the crash is ongoing.
At this point, we're able to rule out drugs and alcohol and that sort of thing. In terms of the rest of the investigation, we're just looking at other instances. We could examine, say, the vehicle just as an example itself. Did that cause an issue?
And police have not released the woman's name to the public. It's a heartbreaking story about a local woman who lost her husband back in February. When Arlene Drefts returned home from Arizona last week, she discovered hundreds of their belongings were gone, stolen from a suspect she says her family trusted. Warren and Arlene Drefts were married for 52 years. In February, Arlene had to say goodbye to her husband, who suffered from a bone marrow disease and died from complications from the flu.
Warren had developed the flu down in the States, and he became very dehydrated, and we were advised by a family member that we should return to Canada.
Last week, Arlene returned from Arizona, where she had been tending to Warren when he became sick. When she arrived home, she was met with yet another hardship. Hundreds of Warren's and the family's belongings on their farm had been stolen.
That barn was totally full. It was full from wall to wall, and all that was left in the barn was 2 tractors. And the truck was out front, and somebody was trying to steal it.
Police alleged the man who lived on the Drefts property stole the items and sold them while Arlene was away in the States.
One of our members began investigation into these allegations over the weekend, and it came to light that we were able to charge Nicholas Grunwald with several counts here.
Police are accusing Grunwald of stealing the items and selling them on Kijiji and Facebook. When the Drefts arrived to the farm on Friday, they witnessed one of their vehicles in the process of being sold. Redcliffe RCMP say that 4 vehicles, farm equipment, and hundreds of tools were stolen from this property where Grunwald rents a trailer from the family. Police are also actively searching pawn shops around Medicine Hat, trying to recover some of the $30,000 in missing personal belongings.
I never thought that was somebody would be that cruel right after my husband died. On the farm, we never locked the doors.
Arlene and her family are desperate to get their belongings back. However, there's one thing, she worries, that can't be replaced.
It takes away the grieving time that I had for my husband by doing this on top of it, because it gives us all the extra stress.
And the family is asking anyone with information on the whereabouts of their belongings to contact the Redcliffe RCMP at 403-548-2222. Friends and family of Chester Honchak remembered the well-known businessman last Saturday. His service was held at the Monarch Theatre for a man identified as the homicide victim who was found on a rural property on Range Road 60 back on March the 22nd. Friend Barry Hagemeister says Honchak was always generous with friends and family, while former Alderman John Hamill recalled Honchak's outgoing personality.
Real character, good man. I say, too many people probably judged him. He was very rambunctious. He was one of those guys who always gave you a hug for some reason, which was embarrassing at moments, but apart from that, I liked him very much.
Him and I played poker together quite a few times. He's been at my house. I've been at his house many times. We've had quite a few vodkas together and lots of good times. He was a good friend of my whole family. We're all here together, and we're going to miss him dearly.
Honchak's body was found after police shot and killed Chris Arkell on a property south of the city. Medicine Hat police are reminding the public of the dangers associated with illegal drug use after what they're calling a surge in recent overdoses in the city. 4 deaths have been linked to overdoses already in 2014, while only 5 cases were reported all of last year. Staff Sergeant Joe West says while major crimes are investigating the individual cases, they're not believed to be related.
We don't suspect that there's any link between these events, and we certainly don't think that there's any tainted drugs or drugs that are more dangerous than they normally are.
And police are reminding the public there are resources available from Alberta Health Services for addiction support. All right, please do stay tuned as the neonatal intensive care unit is reopened at the regional hospital after last week's flood. We'll have that story coming up after the break. Stay tuned. Welcome back. Weatherford Wireline continues to remain tight-lipped about its operation shutting down here in Medicine Hat. However, several sources are confirming the company is closing its doors. Tuesday morning, employees at the company's Briar Park office were in a closed conference. No one was available to comment, and calls to Weatherford's head office were not returned. Weatherford's other operations in Medicine Hat will remain open. However, the oil and gas service company has apparently offered dozens of its employees and its wireline operation either a transfer or a buyout package. It was just over a year ago when Halliburton closed its Medicine Hat operation, impacting over 200 employees. Calling it just the tip of the iceberg, Alberta Health Services confirming there's a full-blown outbreak of whooping cough here in southern Alberta. Dr. Vivian Suthorpe confirms there are 34 cases, including some here in Medicine Hat. Suthorpe believes there are many other cases that have gone unreported. She says by the time this outbreak is over, it could go as high as 100 cases that were reported back in 2009.
I think we're seeing now, even compared to 5 years ago, more mixing of populations as well. So we've had clusters in Medicine Hat, clusters in Bow Island areas, all the way through to the county of Lethbridge, Fort Macleod areas.
And Suthorpe says a whooping cough outbreak typically occurs every 3 to 5 years. She says all infants should be immunized, as well as pregnant women in their 3rd trimester. And the neonatal intensive care unit at the regional hospital reopened on Tuesday after being closed for 6 days due to long-term water damage. The ward has been inspected and given a clean bill of health. 11 babies were born during the closure. All 11 were cared for in a regular nursery at the hospital. And finally this week, starting this Monday, construction on the hospital parkade will further restrict visitor parking in the area. Crews are moving into the final phase of the $1.3 million parking upgrade. There'll be no parking in the back half of the parkade, as well as limited availability in the front. Once full, visitors will be directed to the northwest staff parking lot, which is accessible from Prospect Drive. Signage and staff will be on site to direct vehicles as well as pedestrians. Sean Chilton with Alberta Health Services wants to assure people with mobility issues that they will be accommodated during the construction.
We recognise that this is inconvenient to our patients and to our public, and they will be looking at how we can best support those patients and families. If they've got difficulty walking and moving, we'll make sure that we're asking those questions and helping them get into the facility in the quickest way possible without creating any inconvenience.
And the renovated parkade is expected to reopen this August. Well, that is all the time we have this week. Please be sure to join us weekdays for the Chat News at noon and again at 5:30. Thank you for watching and enjoy your weekend, everyone.